Hi, everyone. Welcome to Postnatal Minds first podcast. Um, I really just wanted to take this first podcast as an opportunity for people to really get a feel for me. I launched the business last week. The feedback's been amazing. So many lovely messages, and thank you so much for all of the support. So many nice messages saying, this is so needed, and I wish something like this had been around when I needed it because there wasn't anything. Um, and I have recently just left the NHS after 16 years of being a mental health nurse, working in a number of different roles. And I guess I really love the NHS, and I think it's like one of our world's wonders. But I knew that there was a gap that for new parents that needed to try and be filled. And I guess my own personal circumstances kind of pushed me to reflect on what I could do within that. And I honestly believe that in most people, particularly women who are underrepresented in leadership in the world, have ideas that they think, oh, I think that would be a really good thing, or that could really work, and then they never do it. So really, that was my main thought process of I'm going to do it, and wanting to be a role model for my kids and show them that you can do anything you put your mind to. Basically, the podcast was going to start a while back, but I've really kind of only been in the position now to have the time to start it, and it will transition into the office space once I move there. But really, this one's just a hi and a introduction to me and why Postnatal Minds now exists. So my name's Rosie, and I am a mother of two. We live in Hove in Brighton. I am from Brighton originally. I trained as a mental health nurse from 2008 at King's College in London, and then stayed in London and worked there for about 8 years before moving back home to Brighton. The intention was always to move back up to London, but it just never happened. And I definitely have like a new bout of love for Brighton. I just think it's an amazing place to live, and it's an amazing place to raise kids. I feel like it's did me well growing up here in terms of diversity and that city life, but also being able to jump in a car 5 minutes and you're somewhere really mindful and peaceful and with nature. So I've kind of fast forward 16 years. I have a 4-year-old girl called Alba. I'm saying 4, she's actually 4 in 15 days. But it's all we're talking about at the moment, as anyone who's had a near 4-year-old will know. And I have a 14-month-old boy, Arlo. I'm not the great seller of pregnancy. I had pretty awful pregnancies both times. I've got a rare genetic blood disorder, which basically means that I hemolyse quite quickly. And when I'm pregnant, it just goes nuts, and I hemolyse fast, and I generally spend most of my pregnancy with low oxygen levels, feeling pretty grim. But particularly in my pregnancy with Arlo, it escalated, and I, in summary, needed a blood transfusion every month while I was pregnant, and then continued to need them after birth until my levels returned. There's no treatment for it. It's just it's like a genetic mutation that I inherited from my two parents. It's all your fault, mum and dad. So yeah, I'm not one of those people that's like, pregnancy is beautiful. It's an amazing thing, and we grow humans, and it is incredible. But I am not a great seller of pregnancy. I did not have a great time. I survived through it. My first both pregnancies, I got really awful morning sickness till literally 13, 14 weeks. And you forget how bad that is, don't you, when it's over? Like, you're just done with it. But not fun. And the fact that it's called morning sickness is just bizarre, because it's nothing morning about it. For me, in fact, mine got worse in the evening and the night. Second time round with Arlo, I took meds and it was a bit better, but yeah, still not great. And that tiredness, second time round, being pregnant in that first trimester with a toddler, wowzer. Like, why don't we talk about that more? That was a pretty insane experience. So yeah, I kind of had a similar pregnancy with Arlo up until about was 28 weeks. At our 20, I had extra scans because of my blood disorder. They were always worried about the babies being anemic. And I actually had C-sections with both children. I'd done hypnobirthing with Alba and I had wanted a home birth. We had a box with a pool that never got opened. And I actually chose to have an elective C-section with Alba at 42 plus 2, which was the longest wait of my life. But that mentally was as far as I could go. And then I just didn't want to be induced, basically. I knew I would end up with an emergency C-section or, all the other nice things that can happen during birth in an emergency situation. So I elected for a calm, beautiful C-section. And it was calm and beautiful. It was an amazing experience. Hard recovery because C-sections are hard to recover from. It's definitely not the easy way out. But yeah, and then I'd hoped for a natural birth with I don't like saying natural birth actually, because that stigmatizes it for me. I'd hoped for a vaginal birth with Arlo, and had spoken to the midwife, and that was the plan. We had a scan at 20 weeks. I think that's the gender scan, isn't it? Yeah, which we never wanted to find out what we didn't with Alba, and we didn't with Arlo want to either. And he said, you need to come back in 8 weeks because your placenta's over your cervix. And we need to make sure from your previous C-section that it's not embedded. So we went back at 28 weeks and went into the scan, and he said, your placenta's moved, but I'm getting really small measurements of the baby's long bones. And I can't really, it's all a bit of a blur now, but I know that he kind of said, we're going to need to refer you to see the consultant. And we'd been through similar with Alba. I remember them telling us that her femur bones were short and we had to go back for extra monitoring, and then she was fine. She was actually £8.5 when she was born. So I was just like, I'm very much like, I don't really deal with things until it happens, and I won't worry until I know I need to worry. I've always been quite laid back like that and kind of good in high intense situations. So we went and spoke to the midwife, and I think it was like there was train strikes and all sorts of things going on, which meant that we had to go to London. And she was like, oh, there just so happens that there's a scan appointment tomorrow, could you get there? And we were like, yeah, that's fine. We went up to London the next day, and we had another scan there, and there was some other stuff going on in the background about blood transfusions and possible transmission of a virus that they were ruling out. But the consultant there basically a lady was doing the scan, the consultant took over, and I kind of looked over and saw Lloyd's face and thought, this is taking quite a long time. And then we sat, I don't want to go into too much detail about this because I am going to do a whole episode on Arlo's condition with a friend, with a boy who's also got Arlo's condition. But to cut a long story short, he gave us the diagnosis there and then that kind of rolled us into a whole genetic procedure. So in a nutshell, Arlo has a condition called achondroplasia, which is a 1 in around 30,000 random chance. And it is more commonly known as dwarfism. I am really struggling with that word generally, and I'll be happy to use it if that's what Arlo wants to use when he grows up. But I'll talk more about that in the next session. So obviously, talking about my two pregnancies, my second pregnancy then took quite a dramatic turn in terms of how similar it had been to my first. And as you can imagine, I'm talking about it very matter of fact now, but for anyone who has had any worries about that or diagnosis of, of any kind during pregnancy, it's extremely difficult. I still had a lot of weeks of growing Arlo to do. And it was an incredibly challenging time. I think if it wasn't for Alba, I'm not sure I'd have literally got out of bed, to be honest. We just absolutely laid on our nearest and dearest and kind of broke the news to people and tried to come to terms with this huge thing that had happened. Fast forward to 39.5 when Arlo was born on the 4th of August last year. So he's now 14 months. He's incredible. They both are. They're our world. He's doing really well. I will talk more in the next episode about his condition and facts, because as I'm sure you will know, there's not much out there about it. And we didn't think that two average height parents could have a child with dwarfism. So it's been a massive learning curve for us, and we've had to become experts by experience. So really having that experience second time round, along with some other personal circumstances with work, really prompted me to think there's got to be more out there. There, apart from my 6-week GP checkup, and I could self-refer to the wellbeing service, which didn't work out for me. There really wasn't anything out there. In fact, we had quite bad care in terms of the support that we did get, apart from my midwife. Shout out to Susie, she was amazing. But we really had quite a lot of failings in our care, which I won't go into now. So yeah, really Postnatal Minds was born out of that idea. Once I'd got through the kind of rapid rivers of that, I wanted to provide a service. And after 16 years of being in the NHS, as you know, I started as like a care worker, did my mental health nursing, worked in London in both the community and inpatient, got lots of experience with postpartum psychosis, depression, anxiety, ruminative diseases, every mental illness. I've worked in forensics, I've worked in adult services, worked in child services, I've worked in leadership roles, I've managed hospitals, I've managed whole areas of Sussex. So really kind of felt like I was ready for a change. I've previously was in a kind of more office-based role, so I was really missing that clinical work. So just sat back and thought, right, I've got 16 years of mental health experience. I completed an online course in health and wellbeing coaching, like online, in person, via Zoom, and just had that. And Postnatal Minds was born, really. So as much as I'm kind of wearing the two hats of mental health nursing, along with all my continued professional development that I did within that role, and the health and wellbeing coaching to offer sessions to new parents. And I say parents because I never wanted it to just be mums only, because there's a whole group of dads and men that also go through that 4th trimester and baby loss and not having much paternity leave, and actually a lot of dads and vice versa that turn into carers of their partners and wives and girlfriends, sisters, mums, because they don't have any support. And it's one of the biggest life changes we will ever have. So I wanted the service to be gender neutral so anyone could access it, because I think sometimes the dad within the situation is forgotten, and I hope to do some more gender specific work on that in the future. So really I just wanted to emphasize the fact that, Postnatal Minds is totally personalized to each individual. So all the information that you'll need for any kind of sessions or FAQs or any questions at all should all be answered on there. If not, then my direct messages are open, and please feel free to contact me via email. It's really down to kind of what you've been through and what you need, which would all be mapped out in the consultation as to how many sessions you will need. But ultimately, I really just want to emphasize that the consultation is your initial session to see why you want the support, what's been happening, how you're feeling, and whether that's, I'm thinking of scenarios now, whether you had a really awful birth experience that you're still quite stuck in, whether you're fully through that fourth trimester and you're just thinking, wowzer, I need to talk to someone about all of that, whether you're in it and you're feeling isolated and a bit anxious about going out, whether you're a year on and you're return to work and you're just like, who am I now? I need to work through this with someone. I always use the scenario of I remember going to baby classes in those early days and like looking around at all the babies like having a great time, and like looking around and all the mums just being like tired and looking sad and lonely, and I remember just thinking, why is there nothing for us in our mental health? And I remember also starting shout out to Hattie and Kin Pilates locally, because I did a Bring Your Baby group, Reformer Pilates, which was amazing for me at that time, and I love Reformer. But I remember also like doing the consultation with her and just hearing pockets of women burst into tears left, right, and centre, and being like, why don't we normalize, like we normalize like getting our scars seen to and going to exercise classes and taking baby to sensory classes, but we don't normalize talking about our mental health. What on earth is going on up here after such a huge change, and like this new body that you're like detached from, which used to have something growing in it, it doesn't now, and you just need to get on with it, you need to keep that baby alive. But really there's like nothing out there for women to have a massive mental health well-being postnatal plan or support plan. So really I really want to try and kind of fulfill that gap, and I hope that collaborations will exist in the future between local services like that. And I really just want Postnatal Minds to be I want to get to the point where people are like, you sound like you're really struggling, I know this girl, I know this service that is really good. And as and when I get testimonials and people finish their sessions, I hope to be able to share kind of before and after situations and how people are now feeling after engaging with the service. So I feel like that's it in a 20-minute nutshell. But I can't emphasize enough that it's kind of user-led, it's person-led. Like, I will be a safe, honest, open place for you to come to talk about how you're feeling, talk about any goals we can make for you, to help guide you to achieve, and really normalise us talking about your mental health after birth. How much effort did you put into your birth? Being pregnant, did you have pregnancy massages, reflexology, acupuncture? Did you have a birth plan? Did you have a plan for the fourth trimester? Because not many people do. Did you think about the hormone drop that you get and how you manage that? Did you rest? It's just all these questions. I know with me, I reflect back now and I'm like, no one can actually tell you what it's like until you've done it. I think particularly with C-section, perhaps because I hadn't gone into labour naturally. So I just, one minute I was pregnant and the next minute I had the baby, and then my hormone dropped on like day 4 or 5. But from speaking to friends, I know that that's quite a common thing, day 4 to 5, when your nipples get sore and your milk comes in. And I remember just feeling so anxious to go outside on a simple walk. you look back now and you're like, what's the worst? I remember my mum saying, what's the worst that can happen? You come home. But I think it's just time we start talking about this a bit more and checking in on the mum's mental health and saying, I know that this is there if you need it. So please check out the website. As I said, if there's any questions or anything, then please give us a message. We are mostly on Instagram, so I hope to be able to share some of my life, and hope you can relate to that and us, and share the kids as much as appropriate. A lot of you are really invested in Arlo's journey. So that's really lovely. And yeah, as I said, thank you so much for all the amazing support. I've also kept a list of all the podcast topic requests, and I've got some really amazing guests lined up. So stay tuned, and I hope to see some of you in person online really, really soon. Please give us a like and a share as much as possible. You know what a big impact that makes. And yeah, thanks for listening, and I'll see you soon. Bye.